Indianapolis this week.
Explosive testimony from last week from former FBI Director James Comey, who accused the President of the United States of lying.
I was honestly concerned that he might lie about the nature of our meeting, and so I thought it really important to document.
Several bombshells in Comey's testimony in hours before the Senate Intelligence Committee. Comey revealing why he kept detailed notes of his conversations with President Trump, including a one-on-one meeting at the White House. Comey says the president asked him to drop the FBI's investigation into former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, saying, quote, "I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go." And he revealed this.
And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel.
He also testified the president misrepresented the state of the FBI when he fired Comey. The president's personal attorney disputing the claims, including a statement that the president asked Comey for loyalty.
The president also never told Mr. Comey, quote, "I need loyalty. I expect loyalty," close quote.
The committee questioned the director of national intelligence, former Indiana Senator Dan Coats, one day prior. That after the Washington Post reported Coats told colleagues Trump asked him to intervene with Comey on the FBI's probe.
Are you prepared to say that you have never felt that you've never been asked by the president or the White House to influence an ongoing investigation?
Well, Senator, I just hate to keep repeating this, but I'm going to do it. I'm willing to come before the committee and tell you what I know and what I don't know. What I'm not willing to do is to share what I think is confidential information that ought to be protected in an open hearing. And so I'm not prepared to answer your question today.
I am not asking for classified information. I am asking whether or not you have ever been asked by anyone to influence an ongoing investigation.
I understand, but I'm just not going to go down that road in a public forum.
President Trump is claiming vindication in the testimony, tweeting this Friday morning, despite so many false statements and lies, total and complete vindication. And wow, Comey is a leaker. One of Indiana's senators says it's clear from Comey's testimony that Russia interfered with last year's presidential election. But Democratic Senator Joe Donnelly tells RTV6 it is also time to let the numerous investigations play out, those in Congress and the one led by Special Counsel Robert Mueller.
When we have situations coming up such as possible Russian sanctions, I want to know as much as I can, but I'm not trying to prejudge the investigation itself. I thought that what we should do is follow Robert Mueller's lead. He'll keep the investigation going, and we'll help to determine what we find out.
In his statement, Congressman Jim Banks says those hoping for fireworks or a smoking gun may be disappointed by today's hearing, but I am hopeful that now Congress can let the independent prosecutor do his job and draw conclusions once the official investigation is complete. Congressman Todd Rokita says there are two takeaways. President Trump was not the subject of an FBI investigation, and Trump encouraged Comey to complete the Russia investigation to clear the air and give the American people confidence there was no wrongdoing. Meantime, more big news from Washington. The Trump administration announcing it has no plans to end or scale back existing sanctions against Russia. White House Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders told reporters the administration is committed to existing sanctions against Russia. She says the administration will keep them in place until Russia fully honors its commitments to resolve the crisis in Ukraine. The U.S. and the European Union have imposed sanctions on Russia over its annexation of Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula. Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb traveled to the White House last week to take part in a roundtable discussion on infrastructure. INDOT Commissioner Joe McGinnis joined him to discuss the condition of the state's roads. Their take part of a discussion led by Vice President Mike Pence. Other governors weighed in as well one day after the president pushed for a greater investment in the country's aging roads and bridges. The Indiana Department of Transportation is driving ahead to explore tolling on the interstates. The Northwest Indiana Times reports INDOT issued a request from potential contractors for advice on planning a tolling program that can be expanded. The governor signed a bill into law requiring INDOT to look into tolling with the intention of creating $5 billion in funding for roads and bridges. Part of that funding plan, you will remember, includes an increase in the gas tax and vehicle registration fees. Health officials in Indiana say more women and children could be eligible for benefits as part of a federally funded nutrition program. The State Department of Health says new guidelines for the program known as WIC will allow a family of two making about $30,000 a year to qualify. The agency says a family of four making about $45,500 a year can also qualify. The program provides healthy food, breastfeeding support, and nutrition education to pregnant women, mothers, and children up to the age of 5. New developments in the battle between a pro-marijuana group and the government in Tippecanoe County. A federal appeals court says the county was too restrictive in a policy that blocked a rally for the marijuana supporters. A 3-judge panel from the Circuit Court of Appeals upheld a lower court ruling in the case. That ruling placed an injunction on the county's policy that requires formal permission to hold a rally or protest outside of the Lafayette courthouse. The lawsuit was filed by the ACLU of Indiana on behalf of a group called the Higher Education Fellowship. Circle City, Indiana Pride Week comes to a close today with the National Equality March for Unity and Pride. Organizers say the LGBTQ community is coming together at Monument Circle to make a call for equality and pride for all people, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. The Unity and Pride March starts at noon. Governor Holcomb released a letter welcoming those visiting for the march and other Pride Week events. The governor saying it is important that we always seek to understand and accept individuals no matter their political affiliation, religion, race, gender identity, sexual orientation, or other differences. The tone of his letter quite different from one issued by then Governor Mike Pence 2 years ago that failed to mention anything about sexual orientation. Up ahead, analysis from our political insiders on the explosive testimony from the former FBI director and its potential impact in Washington.
Indianapolis Public Library location.
Welcome back. We are joined by our RTV6 political insiders, Abdul Hakim Shabazz, Adam Kirsch. Welcome. Wanted to see, what do you think? What is the impact of Comey's testimony?
Well, I think the impact of Comey's testimony is yet to be seen long-term, both politically and legally. But I think it's important to take a moment and realize how historic it is. We had the former FBI director call the president a liar. We had the former FBI director say he was sure the president is under investigation for obstruction of justice. And before we get into the politics, I think that needs to be noted.
And that I agree. I mean, you have two tracks here going on. You have the Russian track. You know, did the Russians try to meddle, interfere with the election? I mean, I think it's pretty much clear they did to try to have some influence. But I think, like I agree with Adam, the bigger issue is, you know, what were the conversations between the president, Director Comey, how were they interpreted, and, you know, there is a legal argument that can be made that Director Comey did, that the president did attempt to obstruct justice. Now, nobody's going to come out and say, hey, Jim, don't investigate Michael Flynn. That is not how these things work. It's the, you know, things are suggested, things are handed. You look at the totality of the circumstances, everybody leave the room, a private conversation. Wow, I really wish we could make this go away. That's like when my wife says, you know, honey, I really have a taste for some ice cream. You know, that's her job, or telling me to go get ice cream. So in a weird way, that's going to be where the folks are. The Russian thing is going to be sort of a sidebar. This is now the new storyline.
What are the political implications?
That's yet to be seen. I think Abdul's right. There is a legal argument to be made that President Trump is obstructing justice, and that gets to a prosecution bar. I'm not sure that's quite there. Yesterday was much more about the political, much more about the argument is does it feel like he's open to an investigation in Russia? And I don't think it is. I mean, he said he fired Comey because of Russia, so we have to take Donald Trump at his word on that, if nothing else. So I think the political implications are interesting. I think when we get into Indiana, we'll see. We saw Todd Rokita come out and say Donald Trump's fully vindicated. I think that's aggressive, to say the least. But other than that, I think it's a lot of wait and see on the politics.
And the other thing, too, to keep in mind, particularly with the political side of things, whenever you have two people accusing each other of lying, as an attorney, I have this sort of, my gut instinct is like, okay, which one is under oath? Because the guy or gal under oath is the one who can go to jail if they're caught committing perjury. So you have to keep that in play. And number two, where I think the president walks into a political high problem is, okay, the Russia stuff, Comey's great, he's wonderful, you know, look, they're on it, but then with the potential obstruction of justice, now he's a liar. It's like, no, you can't have it both ways. Either you're lying all the time or you're not at all. And I think that's where, you know, the president and folks who are going to try to defend him are going to have a couple issues there.
Well, and that'd be interesting. I'd love to see President Trump go under oath and answer the same questions.
Or just release the taping system that they have.
Or not.
Yeah.
Well, and we heard, certainly Comey talked about possibility of tapes, but do you think Comey could face an investigation into leaking that information, which he admitted to?
Well, let's be clear. Director Comey didn't leak anything. He took memos to file of an unclassified conversation that he is free to share. So I don't think a leak is there. I think, is he going to take a personal hit? Perhaps. But the worst thing the Department of Justice can do is literally put a note in his file if he ever decides to work for the Department of Justice again.
No, exactly. I mean, there was nothing in his report, you know, that was classified, and that's what people tend to forget. If it's classified information, we're in an entirely different universe, but it's not. It's his thoughts, his impressions, and the fact that the FBI director had to do this because the FBI director did not trust the president, you know, once again, that's a bigger story. It's like, you know, at your jobs, you're writing the CYA memo because you don't trust the people that you're working with to get it right. And when the FBI director has to do that, we have a problem.
Are there any implications for Vice President Pence in all of this?
I think, you know, Vice President Pence was chair of the transition, so all the activity that went on during the transition, he's got some responsibility for. And we saw it briefly touched on in the hearing. There was I can't remember which senator questioned Director Comey about Pence's knowledge, and Comey indicated that Pence was aware of the Flynn issue at an earlier date than previously reported, but that's down the road. So
I think the ultimate political implications for Vice President Mike Pence is get used to say number 46.
We saw Dan Coates in the hot seat, if you will, the day before. What are your takeaways from what he said, what he wouldn't touch on?
I think Adam Schiff came out and talked. There's a little bit of confusion on why they wouldn't speak. They may make a executive privilege claim afterwards, and that's worth. But quite frankly, I think the privilege claim gets hard to make. They have to answer these questions in an open setting.
But I think it's a little different, and I think for the reason that they can't invoke executive privilege on Dan Coates and other folks because A, they're still under the control of the presidency of the United States. I will argue legally they couldn't do it for Director Comey because the guy doesn't work for you anymore, and they know the notes he wrote, you know, weren't in the, you know, the board official FBI knows are his thoughts and impressions, so they could try to, I think executive privilege works. I mean, I can see Dan Coates, not knowing Dan Coates' personality, not wanting to get in the middle of this. I will answer what I'm, you know, legally obligated to answer and not a thing more, because I'm staying out of this foolishness.
Last question, 30 seconds. Are we any closer to knowing whether Russia interfered in the election?
Well, I think we know Russia interfered in the election. I think the open question now is to what degree did the Trump organization coordinate, collude, aware of, etc. And I remind people that Watergate took 2 years. I think it's going to be a much longer process than we think it will.
Even if the Russians did, you know, try to interfere, that still doesn't make up the fact that Hillary Clinton was one of the worst candidates in American history.
Who got more votes than her?
And lost the Electoral College.
We'll end on that note. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Still ahead, the latest on the future of Marsh supermarkets and what it means for shoppers, plus a senior prank that prevented dozens of graduates from walking across the stage at a local high school.
With RTV6 and Citizens Energy Group.
Today, a former Metro police officer is expected to get out of jail. David Bizard is set for release today. He was convicted of killing motorcyclist Eric Wells and injuring 2 others in 2010 when he hit them with his police cruiser while intoxicated. It was supposed to be an innocent senior prank, but IPS officials found nothing amusing about it. About 30 Crispus Attucks high school students recently broke into the school to put up balloons and caution tape, but a few turned to vandalizing the property. As a result, IPS banned them from walking with their graduating class. But here you see them still wearing their caps and gowns. The group gathered at a church across the street from Attucks to hold an impromptu graduation. Students we spoke with say they regret the prank, but they said they have worked hard to reach this day.
At least we can see our class and like cheer them on, and like we're cheering ourselves on. Like we pulled ourselves together because most of us have been emotional since we found out.
District officials say the group will get their diplomas, but they will also need to complete community service hours as restitution. The Lawrence Township School District is launching a unique plan to lure families to the area. Lawrence Township is starting a realtor task force. It's a new plan to partner with real estate agents in the area. The district wants to dispel negative perceptions and arm realtors with positive information, like rising graduation rates in thriving schools such as Amy Beverland.
Realtors are the eyes and ears of our community, and they're the first point of contact for families looking to come be part of our community. So we need to access them, we need to engage with them, we need to partner with them.
The task force has its first meeting on June 14th and plans to meet every quarter. The group will look at how to use social media to promote the district and how buyers perceive surrounding school districts. We could know the fate of the remaining Marsh stores as soon as tomorrow. A Marsh spokesperson confirms the company is evaluating numerous bids. Marsh will hold an auction for the bidders who are deemed qualified on Monday. Marsh recently filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The grocery chain now has just over 40 stores after closing several locations in Ohio and Indiana. Old Fire Station 16 may soon undergo a transformation. A developer is pushing to turn the building at 56th and Illinois into a restaurant and bar. It would be an $800,000 project to convert the vacant firehouse. Some neighboring businesses like the Illinois Street Food Emporium are hopeful.
Anything that would enhance the neighborhood, I'm for. I'm not sure, how parking and what would be good, a good fit for the neighborhood. If a bar would be such, like I said, it would be great to have a fire station back here in the neighborhood.
The plan is not a done deal. The Metropolitan Development Commission is set to vote on the proposal later this month. Butler University is getting big bucks to upgrade its science programs and buy a supercomputer. 1975 graduate Frank Levinson is donating $5 million to the school. The donation comes as enrollment in Butler's science programs has increased nearly 50% in 10 years' time. Gleaners Food Bank is asking for your help to feed needy children during the summer months. Gleaners faces a $40,000 shortfall for its summer programs. The organization says more than 100,000 children are hungry in central Indiana. To donate, you can contact Gleaners Food Bank or go to their website. Now it's time for I Say, You Say. We have a different guest join us each week. And this week, just in time for the group's 95th anniversary, it's the president of the Junior League of Indianapolis, Michelle Studdy Campbell.
Why join the Junior League of Indianapolis? The bigger question here is why not volunteer and become an engaged member of our community? We have one of the highest concentrations of nonprofits located right here in our city, so it's easy to get involved. The personal effects of volunteering and being engaged are phenomenal. Volunteers have greater overall satisfaction with their life and have a higher life expectancy. Indianapolis has so many opportunities to get involved, from working with students, seniors, the environment, animals, and everything in between. You can find your passion and make our wonderful city even better. Now, why to join the Junior League of Indianapolis? The Junior League is like no other organization in our community. We are the city's only all-female organization that is dedicated to developing the potential of women, effectively training our volunteers, and then channeling those trained volunteers to be a catalyst for community improvement. Started in 1922, today, 95 years later, the JLI has nearly 1,000 members. We dedicate over $250,000 in community investment each year to make our community even better. The Junior League of Indianapolis is 100% managed and run by our members. We raise the critical funding. We determine how to best use those funds. We organize our own trainings, and we create our own strategic plan and direction. Nowhere else here in Indy can you get world-class training, tap into your passion to build a better community, make friendships that will last a lifetime, and have a whole lot of fun doing this. Log on to jlindy.org and join us today.
Thank you, Michelle. Now we want to know what you say. Let us know what you think of what Michelle discussed or anything else that's on your mind. You can reach us on Twitter, on the RTV6 Facebook page, or the RTV6 app, also the IndyChannel.com.
Rallies and checkers. Fast foodies know the deal. Breaking overnight, a former IMPD officer in prison for hitting and killing a man while driving under the influence is now free. David Bessard was released from the Edinburgh Correctional Facility just after midnight. You can see multiple vans moving in to provide transportation after that release. Bessard was sentenced to more than a decade in prison for driving under the influence and crashing into 3 motorcyclists. One of the victims, Eric Wells, died as a result of that crash. The former Metro police officer was released early from prison for things like good behavior and obtaining a degree. Also breaking this morning, a person is in critical condition after being involved in a 2-vehicle crash on the south side of Indianapolis. It happened about a block east of Madison in the Stop 11 intersection. The accident also took down a part of the railroad crossing signal, which will cause delays for trains until it is fixed. We'll have more ahead on Indianapolis this week.
Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. I'm Lauren Casey. It's time for the 6, so we're looking at 6 things you can do right here in Indy this week. Well, it may be summer, but that doesn't mean that your kids should take a break from reading. The Pacers Summer Reading Series kicks off on Monday at 2 o'clock at the Fountain Square Library. Bring the kids to meet the Pacemates, and members of the Pacers All-Star Reading Team will share their favorite stories. Well, Colts and Pacers player leaves their respective sports behind for the night to take to the diamond at Victory Field. This celebrity softball challenge benefits the Indiana Children's Wish Fund. The fund gets started on Thursday at 7 o'clock. The zoo welcomes you to their summer concert series, Zoolapalooza, at a new place. The new Bicentennial Pavilion will host this year's summer jams, with the first one taking place on Friday night. Well, come get a taste of Broad Ripple. The popular festival returns at 3 o'clock on Saturday. It's an action-packed event full of local food, beer, and live music. Tickets start at $7 at the gate. Well, it's time to be a hero on Saturday. Head on over to the NCAA Hall of Champions with the kids to take part in the Superhero 5K. All the proceeds benefit the Ronald McDonald House Charities, and the kiddos, they get a medal and a cape for participating. Well, it's back for the 22nd year, and you can take part in this popular brew fest on Park Avenue. Of course, I'm talking about Brew Ha Ha. It's a 21 and up block party where you can sample the best craft beer in town on Saturday. Well, that's what's on tap in Indy this week. Back to you.
Thanks, Lauren. You'll see a new ride on the Midway at the Indiana State Fair this year. Construction is now underway on the Subaru Sky Ride. When completed, it will hover 35 feet above the ground and travel from east and west in a continuous loop between the Swine Barn and the Midway. You'll be able to get on and off at the ride either end for a 7-minute journey above the fairgrounds. The cost of a one-way ride will be $5 per person. Thank you for joining us for Indianapolis This Week. For our entire production staff and the crew here at RTV6, have a great Sunday.